Intelligent talk that's sure to raise the IQ.
Here's Guy Wehman, Ben Brunson, and Frank Vernuccio inside the news.
Welcome back to our international segment of Inside the News. So glad that you are with us this week all across the country on an AUN TV and all of our affiliates, SoundCloud and YouTube as well. Frank Vernuccio, top left, Ben Brunson in the bottom middle. I'm in the top right. Okay, Ben, starting us off on the international segment, maybe we got two bad players here. We got China and BLM. Are they connected, Ben?
Well, it makes sense that they would be connected, and the Heritage Foundation released a report this week in which they actually did some old-fashioned investigative journalism and dug into Black Lives Matter. It's one of its key founders, Alicia Garza, and some related groups that she is the leader of that all support the ideology of Black Lives Matter. They all have similar names. And she found that they found that she is being heavily backed financially by a group called the Chinese Progressive Association, which is a 501c3 charity, registered charity in this country, meaning if you give money to them, it's tax deductible. And the Chinese Progressive Association has been around for about 50 years. It's tied to China. It is essentially a front organization for the Chinese government, promoting Marxist ideology and pro-China ideology and positions in this country. And why would they support Black Lives Matter? Because Alicia Garza and the leaders of Black Lives Matter are Marxists. They are anti-capitalist. They want to bring down and destroy the capitalist system. They want to replace it with a socialist Marxist utopia. They want to destroy the nuclear family. These are all positions that are stated quite clearly on their websites. And that is the reality of the Black Lives Matter movement. It makes total sense that the Chinese Communist Party is throwing money at them to destabilize and bring down the United States.
All right. And on top of China wanting to destabilize the United States, and I'm going to say it, George Soros wants to do it too. Okay, Frank, go.
Well, you can't underestimate the damage that George Soros has done to the system of justice in the United States. Several years ago, a lot of political types were scratching their heads and trying to figure out why Soros was putting so much money into lackluster races. Local district attorneys, state attorney generals, races that were basically a bore, at least previously. Now, as we see in the disorder brought about by Antifa and Black Lives Matter, we are beginning to understand what his motivation was. What, again, the Democrats couldn't win at the ballot box or at the Supreme Court. What they are doing is they are getting their way through the use of local district attorneys and attorney generals. Letitia James, the Attorney General of the state of New York, has spent more of her time harassing Donald Trump than enforcing law in the state of New York. Soros's money has been able to warp district attorney and state attorney general offices into nothing more than the same type of political attack dogs we saw the Obama administration use the Department of Justice during his administration. It's a devilish strategy, but quite frankly, it's actually been working fairly well for Soros and the hard left.
Okay, Ben, the meddling of actor states, we'll say, okay, we've got China, but then we've got Russia, and there are other countries across across the globe that would love to meddle in the United States political system and cause chaos. We know that Soros is one of a person, not a country, but other countries want to get their influence into this country as well, Ben.
Well, they do, and that's an age-old issue. The Soviet Union had massive disinformation campaigns led by the KGB affecting U.S. politics for the last 100 years. So what Russia is doing is nothing new. The good news is they've never had that big an influence despite some local successes. China has the resources and the money to throw around and ownership of people like Joe Biden through his son, Hunter Biden. You know, when you give someone without any relevant experience $1.5 billion to manage, which comes with a $30 million a year management fee attached to it, that is buying someone on a level that is really unprecedented. Even the Clintons, I think, would have blushed at that deal. So China has the money to throw around, but let's go back to George Soros. We spent a lot of our treasure and time tracking down and killing Osama bin Laden because he hijacked 4 planes, killed 3,000 Americans, brought down the Twin Towers, and destroyed a chunk of the Pentagon. George Soros has done far more damage to this country and his efforts, and bringing people like Larry Krasner into the DA position in Philadelphia, where crime is being decriminalized across the country with these appointments funded by George Soros. He is wreaking havoc on American cities by getting these people elected. He figured out that throwing 10, 20 million into these races where there typically is an opponent that has almost no funding, maybe a few $1,000 of their own money they can put towards something, and he can bring in and prop someone up, a Marxist agitator in the guise of a district attorney with a couple $1 million of advertising, and he can destroy America. And that's exactly what that guy is doing. And frankly, I wouldn't mind seeing SEAL Team 6 show up at his front door. I know that's a little extreme, but the reality is that guy is creating huge destructive havoc across America.
You want to find Ben, he's down at Antarctica down the south. Wow. Okay, Frank, follow that one.
Yeah, I was rather amused back when the post-2016 election period came up, and they were saying the Russians are trying to influence American elections. Newsflash: the Russians have been trying to influence American elections since about 1917, right after the revolution. Look, clearly America as a dominant economic and military power is always going to be a target for foreign influence. The difference in this era, though, is that they have found receptive groups to work with on a more significant level. If we go back to the last years of the last century, the 1980s, for example, 1970s, we saw the nuclear freeze movement, which was heavily financed by the Soviet Union, gained a lot of inroads both in the United States as well as in Europe. So this has been something that has been tried consistently for a very long time. The influence of money for people like George Soros and others, though, has added a devastating new wrinkle. They have now accomplished something they haven't been able to before. They understand more how the political process works. And that's what the genius, the evil genius of George Soros has done.
All right, we've got to take a time out. We've got to get out of here. Have you heard the last of impeachment? I don't think so. We'll be back.
You're listening to Wehman, Brunson, and Vernuccio, Inside the News.